With the average new car transaction price approaching $50,000, there's no denying just how crazy expensive new cars have become. Now, thankfully, for those of you who are on a budget, there are still a few options out there for those of you who want to buy a cheaper brand new car. And this week, as you can see, we are testing one of 3 brand new subcompact entries available here in the States. This right here is the refreshed 2023 Nissan Versa. It got some upgrades this year in the form of new styling, new wheel designs, and some upgraded interior. And for those of you who are wondering, the base price of this vehicle starts at just under $16,000, making this car the cheapest new vehicle that you can buy here in the States today. So as you can see, this week, we're testing out this fully loaded Versa SR trim, and the big question I would answer, has Nissan successfully created a cheap car that doesn't feel cheap? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the upgraded exterior styling, I thought I'd pop the hood and show you guys what's powering this thing. Now, most people in this segment really just care about fuel efficiency, so I want you to take the power figures of this engine with a grain of salt. Now, underneath this hood, things have gone completely unchanged from when Nissan first introduced this vehicle back in 2019 as a 2020 model. This is the company's 1.6-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine. It doesn't even have direct injection, but it does have variable valve timing, I believe. And the power figures remain unchanged at 122 horsepower and 114 pound-feet of torque. This motor is also found underneath the hood of the larger and more expensive crossover-like Nissan Kicks. However, when you look at the competitive set, the Kia Rio and the Mitsubishi Mirage, those are the other 2 subcompact vehicles remaining. This has more horsepower than both of those entries, especially the Mitsubishi, which only has 74 horsepower. It all goes out through either a 5-speed manual transmission. That's the model that you're going to buy if you want the cheapest new car in America. Most of you Versa buyers are probably going to go with the Xtronic CVT, which this model has here. It's an $1,800 upcharge on the base S model. Now, fuel economy is rated at 32 in the city, 40 on the highway. So again, very good MPG considering the fact that this is not a hybrid vehicle. And Nissan doesn't quote a 0 to 60 time. 0 to 60 is probably just a yes, but we'll test it out when we get it out on the road. I don't know the top speed of this thing. It's probably under 100 miles an hour if I had to guess. And the curb weight, this is still a relatively lightweight vehicle, and it weighs in at just under 2,700 pounds, so it doesn't have that much weight to move around, which is good because of the meager power figures. Now, closing up the hood, let's go ahead and talk about the exterior styling. Now, the Versa has been around in the US since 2006, and this is now in its 3rd generation. Nissan gave this car a full redesign back in 2019 as a 2020. So as you can see, the front fascia gets the newest corporate front end. You can see the grille of this vehicle is new. It's larger. It looks a little bit more bold, especially on the SR trim with all the black accents. You can see Nissan's been putting an SR badge recently on the sportier trims. It also has the new Nissan logo there, which looks nice. It doesn't illuminate or anything, but it kind of looks like it does. And then you can see here, this is the only trim of the Versa to come with full LED headlights. Now, technically, you have a reflector style for the LED low and high beams. You do not have an LED daytime running light, however. You can see this accent light does not light up when the vehicle's headlights are not on when you're driving. Instead, it's just, again, an accent light. You have an incandescent turn signal. And then my tester is an SR. It should have fog lights, but for some reason it doesn't. Perhaps they removed it because of the chip shortage and whatnot, or they were lacking in parts, but overall, if you guys want LEDs, you have to go for this trim. The other lower trims of the Versa will actually have halogen headlights. Now, in terms of the size of this vehicle, this is a small vehicle. It's the smallest vehicle that Nissan makes in their current US lineup, but still at 177.4 inches long, this is on the longer end of the segment. It's around 8 to 4 inches longer than the Rio and the Mitsubishi Mirage. And Nissan made this car about 3 inches longer than the previous generation when they first redesigned it. It definitely gives off mini Altima vibes in the design, which is a good thing. I mean, this car I don't think is horrible looking, but it always does remind you that you're driving an economy subcompact vehicle. Now, looking at the wheels, I do love the 17-inch wheels that you get on the SR trim. They're riding on a 205/50 R17-inch tire. The other trims will have a 16-inch alloy wheel. You get front disc brakes. They're like around 10.5 inches in the front. The rears have an 8-inch drum. So again, ABS is standard, and then you have an independent front suspension along with a twist beam rear semi-independent suspension. Now the SR also includes black painted side mirrors. Surprised to see there's an integrated turn signal on there. The window trim is blacked out. There's no sunroof available on the Versa. Nissan doesn't offer that, but at least you can see the door handles are body colored. Everything in here just kind of looks really well finished. Now that's only the case if you guys go for the SR trim, which is considerably more expensive. But looking at the rear, you can see the changes here are pretty minimal. The SR includes this kind of tasteful rear lip spoiler, another SR badge. The taillights remind me a lot of the Altima. You can see it's an all incandescent design with incandescent brake lights, turn signals, reverse lights, the new Nissan logo. And then you can see the SR includes a sportier looking rear diffuser with the faux carbon fiber that you're gonna find on the lower portion of the diffuser. Now, opening up the trunk, nice to see that there is a trunk release button back here. And then the Versa has a pretty sizable trunk if you guys don't consider like a hatchback as a competitive set. Nissan says the trunk measures just under 15 cubic feet, which is good. You do have these hinges that crush your cargo. The seats do fold down in a 60-40 manner, which is nice. And then underneath here, you can see there is a temporary spare tire, although there's room, it looks like, for a full-size spare. It's nice that Nissan still gives you that, but overall you can see as a sedan, a small sedan, the trunk is certainly pretty practical. So the changes that Nissan gave the Versa were pretty minimalistic, but let's go ahead and hop inside the interior and talk about some of the small changes the company also made. You can see here is the key fob for the vehicle. This is the newest Nissan fob. It's an intelligent access key, as you can see. It also has remote start on the fob, which is nice, your usual lock, unlock, remote trunk release. And then Nissan also offers a phone as a key function, digital key, if you get a dealer accessory for $500. That'll give you that a nice little touch. Now, as I approach the vehicle, you can see there's a button here that locks the door for you. If you want to unlock it, the actual button is what you have to push again to unlock the door. Nissan does not do a walk-away auto unlock or lock feature, at least not on this vehicle, which is something that you'll find in some competing cars. Now, looking at the interior of this model, you can see the SR gives you its own unique seat fabric material. You can see, I hope you guys like a black interior though, because as you can see, the black cloth is the only option. It also has kind of like this orange accent at the contrasting stitching, which is nice. This is kind of a premium cloth material. This is what's included if you guys step up to this trim, but the SV also includes a premium cloth material. You can see hard touch door panel materials. It is padded over here with some faux carbon fiber trim. The window is one touch up down for the driver, not one touch for the rest of the windows. The controls, they feel average for the class. Again, this is one of the cheapest cars that you can buy, so your expectations have to be lower. Down here you can see it's hard touch plastic, but at least there's some nice storage pockets. And then you can see the seats, they adjust in like 6 different ways. You cannot get power seats on this vehicle, but these seats are heated, so that's definitely a nice touch. Now, getting inside, you can see the step-in is low. It's a sedan. And then as I get in and shut the door, the door thunk sounds a little bit tinny, but I also have to reset my expectations because this is a cheap car. Now, pushing the start button here, you can hear the engine fires up in a traditional manner. The gauge even does a nice little sweep. It's kind of like a half digital, half analog gauge display. And this is not a hybrid vehicle, so it has a traditional starter noise. But overall, you can see it makes a decent first impression, especially when you start looking at the screens and the price point of this vehicle. The steering wheel is also pretty nice. It's got a flat bottom design. It's got the new Nissan logo, no paddle shifters, of course. But it's got steering wheel controls for your audio controls to adjust that screen, your adaptive cruise control. The horn sounds really pathetic, sadly, but remember, this is a very small car. I just don't get why they have to put these puny sounding horns on these small cars. Now, in terms of the dash materials, you can hear it's pretty cheap and hollow sounding, and it flexes pretty easily, but it doesn't get, it gets a little bit better down here where you can see it's got some nice real stitching with the soft material. This is kind of like a faux leatherette material. And then the SR includes a bigger 8-inch touchscreen here with the Nissan Connect head unit. Now this does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. However, you have to at least go for the SV trim to get the Apple CarPlay. This is not a wireless smartphone integration. However, you can see my phone is connected via this USB-A port or USB-C port. There is a wireless phone charging pad here, which is nice. And then you can see here this gauge cluster. Like I said earlier, you can kind of customize the left screen to show a couple of different things if you'd like, go into a settings and whatnot, adjust a few things from there. So overall, this is a decent looking gauge display considering the price point. You also have single zone automatic climate control, no dual, but you can see there's 2-stage heated seats, no heated steering wheel, but it is unexpected to find heated seats and a wireless phone charging pad. If I put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's your backup camera. It actually has parking sensors, front and rear, and trajectory, which is nice. No 360 360 camera. The resolution's a little crappy, but it's not horrible considering the price point of this vehicle. You also have to remember the price point of these cars. Now down here you can see piano black plastic. There's hard plastic here covering the center console, 2 cup holders, a traditional cable style handbrake, and then you can see this is padded, but I wish it was further out. It's also not very wide, but it's nice that at least there is a center console. There's another USB port in there. There's a little bit of storage in there as well. The seats, for a basic seat, they are, I will say the cloth feels upscale, and the seats themselves are relatively comfortable. On a longer drive they were okay, but again, everybody's seat comfort is different depending on your body. Over here in the glove box you can see it's not damped or lined with felt, it just kind of cheaply falls, but it's a pretty good bin style. My tester also has a technology package that includes an auto-dimming rear view mirror, and it also has these illuminated Versa kick plates, which is nice. It's $800, which I think is a little expensive, but an auto-dimming rear view mirror is a nice touch in a small vehicle like this. No sunroof is available on this car. You'd have just kind of incandescent map lighting throughout the interior, no ambient lighting either. But overall, for a penalty box or something that's affordable, it doesn't feel too much like a penalty box. It has a good amount of space in here, good visibility. I will say the sound system in this car definitely doesn't sound good. If you're an audiophile, Nissan doesn't offer any kind of Bose audio upgrade. But if you're looking for space, you're looking for good tech, you're looking for a relatively decent quality interior, the Versa is a surprisingly good car in that regard. But let's go ahead and hop into the back seat of this vehicle, because the Versa only comes as a sedan. There used to be a hatchback at one point, but Nissan has discontinued that, of course, with this current generation. Materials back here are hard touch plastic, but it is padded right here with that faux carbon fiber trim, some good storage. And then the legroom back here, Nissan only says there's 31 inches of legroom, which isn't a lot. The old Versa had like 37 inches of legroom back here in the second gen Versa, so not sure why the number is so much lower, but once you get back here, you can see this is where I have the front seat to drive. Get back here and shut the door. Now I will say that this back seat definitely doesn't feel as roomy as the old Versa. Now 31 inches is a really low number. I mean, if you look at like an economy compact car, those have like 35 inches, but for somebody my height, I can sit back here, I can cross my legs. The floor is not completely flat, not sure why. There's no all-wheel drive available on this vehicle. There is a USB-C charging port, no rear seat air vents. You have a storage cubby over here, but it definitely doesn't feel as roomy as the old Versa, which is kind of a disappointment. There's also no adjustable head restraints, and there's no armrest here. I think an armrest should have been included, especially on the highest trim of this vehicle, but overall you can see the back seat is certainly usable for average size adults, but for those of you who are coming from the old Versa, you might be disappointed that this one doesn't have quite as much rear seat space. So here we are back in a class of vehicle that I haven't driven in a long time. In fact, the last time I drove a Nissan Versa, it was about 4 years ago at the media drive. This segment of car continues to shrink every year, but it'll always hold a special place in my heart, because the very first new car that I bought when I first graduated college when I was 22 was a Honda Fit with a manual. So the fact that Nissan still offers the Versa is really surprising, considering the fact that Honda, Toyota, Mazda, I mean, a lot of the brands, they've pulled out. Even Hyundai discontinued the Accent last year. So all we have left is this car, the Rio from Kia, and of course the Mitsubishi Mirage. But this is the model that is the most expensive version of the Versa. It doesn't get any more power, but it does come standard with the company's Xtronic CVT. Surprisingly, there is a sport mode in the CVT. Push this back button here and it puts it into an S mode. And I've never tested the 0 to 60 of this vehicle, but I don't have high expectations. It only has 122 horsepower, 114 pound-feet of torque, but it does only have around 2,700 pounds of weight to carry around. So let's go ahead and see what we can get here when we brake torque it. It's front-wheel drive, remember? It actually spun the tires slightly. Oof, it's very noisy. Come on. 9.66 seconds there. Now, I mean, obviously it's slow. It's been a while since I drove a vehicle this slow, actually. It's kind of comical how slow, noisy, and buzzy the engine is. Wow, when you brake torque it, the CVT just holds the revs at 6,500 RPM, and that poor little engine is screaming bloody murder, but it gets the job done in under 10 seconds. I was genuinely surprised I actually broke the 10-second barrier. I was expecting this car to be like 11 seconds, 12 seconds, but when you only have 2,700 pounds of weight to lug around, it's, you know, it's a good thing, but I can see why, you know, like some of the GM vehicles on their affordable cars, they're using a turbo engine. Because of that turbo, you get all that low-end torque, which this engine doesn't have. You have to rev the crap out of it. But regardless, for those of you who have, you know, expectations that are low, you're coming from another slow car, this should be sufficient. Let's try it here. This time I'm not going to brake torque it and see what we can get. This is also more uphill slightly. It feels quick off the line, but man, once you passed $4,000, this thing just doesn't have any guts. It's just really slow. It still holds the revs even when you don't brake torque it. Oh my God. Okay, 11.6 or 11.16 there. So noticeably slower when I didn't brake torque it, and I'm also going slightly uphill. So that engine is just really unsatisfying. It's no wonder why, you know, people drive something like this and then you drive an electric car and it's like, wow, night and day. This is where this type of engine is showing the weaknesses of an internal combustion engine. And it's a reminder of what cars used to be like. I mean, this is essentially what you expect when you buy an economy compact vehicle. But again, that's only if you're demanding maximum acceleration. I put my foot down here. Again, the lack of torque, it has trouble getting up to higher speeds when you're going uphill like this. But what is really good, surprisingly, is this CVT. Nissan does CVTs well, and this powertrain puts the engine, or at least it's very quick to adjust ratio, and it tries to put the engine revs up high, although I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. But it is at least a responsive and smooth transmission, and that's going to help things out. Now, when you are just driving this vehicle normally, it surprisingly has a good ride. We have a semi-independent rear suspension, so it's a torsion beam. We've got these 17-inch wheels, but this car soaks up the bumps quite well. Now, if you do hit a really hard bump, you will feel a shudder throughout the vehicle because the rear suspension is not independent, but the steering in this car surprisingly has good heft to it. The car changes directions with authority. It has a soft suspension, which is contributing to that nice ride quality, but sporty SR is a little bit of a stretch. I mean, it looks better, obviously. I'd have to drive a baser Versa to kind of get an idea if they actually made this sporty. I don't think Nissan gave it any suspension changes, but again, put my foot down here, it starts mimicking shifts, but it gets up to speed just fine. So as much as I want to hate on this car, it's not absolutely horrible when you consider the price point and what you're getting. Nissan has a really good package here. It's just a shame that nobody really buys this type of vehicle anymore. So that's the reason why so many manufacturers are kind of pulling out of it. Now I want to try it one more time here and just see if we can consistently get that 9.6. Hopefully we have enough road to get to 60. 9.7 here, so yes, this car is capable of a sub 10-second 0 to 60 time, but you're not going to be enjoying the sounds that's coming from under the hood when you're doing so. Most of you are just going to put it into its regular mode. You're just going to drive it like an economy car. And this is where the Versa is really easy to drive. It's a small vehicle, although it is big for the segment. It has good visibility as well. I can see out of the front, the side, the rear very nicely. It even comes with Nissan Safety Shield 360. My Tesla also has adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, all that necessary good stuff to, again, give you the peace of mind when you're driving a vehicle like this. The seats are also surprisingly comfortable. It's an upgraded cloth seat that you get with the SR. It has a nice armrest over here, although the armrest is placed a little further too far back. At least it's nice and padded. Same thing with the armrest pad on the door panel. It's also padded. And I also like this steering wheel. It's a flat bottom wheel design, and it looks good. It doesn't have the nicest feeling leather on the wheel itself, but at least it's not a urethane steering wheel. It actually is a leather wrapped wheel. And then in terms of noise, when you aren't pushing the engine, it's surprisingly quiet in here. I'm surprised, actually. It doesn't have as much road noise and wind noise. It just has way too much engine noise, which is, you know, what you expect. I wish that Nissan would offer a sunroof, but that's only going to jack the price up even more. So again, no sunroof is available on this car. And in terms of the fuel efficiency, in my week's worth of testing, I averaged around 34 mpg. That favors very well on the EPA's numbers of 3240. Now on the highway, I was actually able to break the 40 mpg. When you really drive this thing efficiently, it'll do around 41 miles to the gallon on the highway, which is excellent. Now this car does have a small 10-gallon gas tank, so when gas prices are expensive, you're not really going to feel it. It'll be cheap to fill up, but it only will do around 350-ish miles on a full tank, so not great. On the highway, you should be able to get closer to the 400-mile That's if you're gonna really push this car to empty out the fuel tank completely. But overall, I am pleasantly surprised with how well this car drives. As long as you aren't pushing it and like revving the engine near its redline all the time. It has good space, it is comfortable, it's easy to drive, it has decent tech features, although I wish this car had wireless CarPlay. It wouldn't be hard for Nissan to add the wireless function. But overall, you know, if you guys wouldn't be caught dead in a sedan or an SUV, you want a cheap sedan. Remember, this car is the cheapest new car in America when you're looking at the base version with a manual. This model here obviously is a little bit more because of all the options it has. It certainly makes the Versa still an enticing proposition, but man, Nissan could do wonders to this car if they would just add an electrified powertrain underneath. I know it's going to increase the price, but I think it would also improve the fuel efficiency and greatly improve the acceleration as well. So after spending a full week with the cheapest new car in America, the Nissan Versa, I have to say, with everybody complaining at just how expensive new cars have become, trust me, I get it, it is refreshing to test out a vehicle as basic as this car. Now, basic is always a relative word because for some people, you may actually find that the Versa, for an entry-level car, comes with a lot of great features. As you guys saw, it has adaptive cruise control, it has Apple CarPlay, it has an 8-inch touchscreen, it has relatively comfortable seats, it has a nice driving demeanor, it has a nice look on the outside. Obviously, if you guys want the even fancier features, you're going to want to have to step up to a Sentra or a Civic or a Corolla for that. But what's refreshing about the Versa is just how simple this car is, even though it is dreadfully slow. I mean, 0 to 60 in 9.6 seconds is kind of unacceptable. For those of you who are used to a slow car, you're going to get into this vehicle and find the acceleration to be perfectly adequate, and you're also going to appreciate the cheap fill-ups because of the small fuel tank and the good MPGs. Obviously, Nissan could improve on this vehicle if they add an electrified aspect, make this vehicle a hybrid powertrain, but Nissan currently doesn't do a hybrid powertrain. They're kind of skipping that, it seems, and going to the all-electric route. But really the beauty about the Versa is the fact that this is a small car that's brand new, that comes with a full warranty, and it starts at just under $16,000 for the base S with a manual transmission. Now, most of you are going to spend nearly $2,000 to go with the CVT, which you're looking at around just under $18,000 for this vehicle. And then my tester here, the SR trim with the technology package, this upcharge for the color, comes in at around $22,610. Now, $22,000 may sound like a lot of money for a Versa with only 122 horsepower, but this starting price is going to be, or this fully loaded price is going to be right around where a compact sedan starts. And keep in mind, if you look at like a base Corolla LE, it's not going to have push button start or smart entry like this Versa does. You have to step up to get like an option package to include that. Basically, expect to spend around $25,000 for a compact car, for the one that's moderately equipped, or you could also get a fully loaded subcompact car like this vehicle, which if you look at the equipment compared to the Rio and the Mirage, this definitely gives off compact car vibes and makes it feel less like an economy penalty box, unlike some competitors which are also in the price range. So overall, I'm overall impressed with the 2023 Nissan Versa. If you guys are looking for an affordable small car, I think this is probably one of the best ones out there. But also just keep in mind, for a little bit more money, you can also spend to get something like an all-wheel drive Subaru Impreza or a Crosstrek, or get a Honda Civic or a Corolla, which is probably why this class of vehicle continues to shrink, because many Americans are realizing you could spend a little bit more and get more car for your money. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2023 Nissan Versa SR. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.